What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tomatoito Boxing Show. And, well, what a busy weekend it was for boxing. It was a fun weekend at that. And let's talk about Miami Beach and the card that was headlined by Teofimo Lopez, Top Ranks event that they put together out in Miami Beach this past Saturday. Headlined by Teofimo Lopez as he faced journeyman Steve Claggett. And then the co-main event was Robeisy Ramirez getting back to his winning ways. That was a very, very entertaining co-main event as well. For Teofimo Lopez, he got some rounds. He took some criticism as he has in the past after this performance because people are starting to question Teofimo Lopez's power, if it's actually there, if it has transitioned with them up to 140, just because of the amount of punches that he landed on Steve Claggett. He landed some really clean, some really crisp punches, whether they were overhand rights or uppercuts. He dominated the fight from beginning to end. And for Teofimo, well, he said post-fight, he just wanted to get some rounds. He knew what kind of fighter Steve Claggett was. He was a come forward, stay busy type fighter. He wanted to get some good rounds under his belt. And he's looking to unify. He's looking to go after the other champs. So people questioning the power, whether it has transition or not, I think it has. I think he answers the bell and answers the call whenever it need be. And I think he knew the assignment this past Saturday, and he wanted to get some rounds under his belt. Steve Claggett, obviously the accumulation of overhand punches that he did, whether it was right or left, you could see the damage that he inflicted on Teofimo post-fight. Both of his brows were heavily swollen, eyelids to brows, heavily swollen on Teofimo Lopez in the post-fight interview. Nonetheless, very cool, calm, collected Teofimo through and through. And it was another vintage type performance where, yes, he gets the decision over Steve Claggett. There was no question as to who the winner was. Many would have liked to see a knockout. Many would have liked to see a stoppage on behalf of Teofimo to bring that fire back in. But he does dominate these fights. He does look good. He's in control. He guides the fight as whatever he basically dictates the pace of the fight, the rhythm of the fight. And Steve Claggett kept coming forward. No matter how staggered Steve Claggett was, especially in round 4, round 8, no matter how staggered he was, how hurt he was, he kept coming forward because he doesn't know how to fight any other way. It was good work, good rounds for Teofimo Lopez. Those questions about his power, well, the only way that I would put that power, his lack of power, punching power in these heavier divisions, or at least in this 140 division, because we knew he had power at 135. The only doubt would be if he does transition to welterweight, because he's asking for the Terrence Crawford fight. If he does go to welterweight, how is that going to translate? How is his punching power going to translate then? I'm sure his speed will still be there, his reactions, or his reactionary time, his instincts. But how will the punching power translate then? Just because of the amount of punches that he landed on Steve Claggett and the style of punches, the type of punches that he landed on Claggett, and was still unable to drop him and put him away. Very good selection, punch selection by way of Teofimo Lopez. And but he wanted to get rounds under his belt. What else can you say at that point? You got the decision win, and if that's really what the assignment was, then he delivered with flying colors. If he really did try to put away Steve Claggett and was unable to, a lot of credit to Steve Claggett and his chin. He now gets the 8th loss of his record, 38-8-2. Teofimo improves to 21-1. And regardless of what you think of Teofimo Lopez, he was the man at 135. And even though people, especially Josh Taylor, he's the one that started with this. When Josh Taylor became undisputed at 140, Teofimo had all the belts after that victory over Lomachenko. And the issue there happened to be with the WBC. Those of you that have followed the show, you guys know that I've talked about this in detail. We've even gone through the rules of the WBC as they're listed on their website as it relates to these franchise statuses, diamond statuses, what have you. platinum and titanium status, what have you. I don't know. But we went through every single rule as dictated, as listed, as written by the WBC themselves, and you could find that on the website. How are those titles transferable? Are they transferable? So if they weren't transferable, which is what the WBC argued, then why did they promote it as an undisputed championship fight between Teofimo and Loma? And the WBC title was everywhere to be seen during that lead up. Then the WBC backpedals and says, no, the WBC title was not in play. Prior to that fight, Loma had relinquished his WBC title when he led into the fight with Luke Campbell because he didn't want to fight then lesser-known Devin Haney. So he relinquished that title. Haney was the interim champ, eventually gets elevated to full champ. This whole debacle of the WBC title being part of the Teo Loma fight ends up being the WBC that caused the whole mess and the whole confusion. And so then he was listed, Teofimo was, as the undisputed champ. But he was a man. He couldn't defend the straps. He lost it in his very next fight against George Kambosos. That rematch never happens. He moves up to 140, beats the man who was the man who started all this noise about Teofimo when they were at similar stages in their career, and Josh Taylor dismantles him. The man that was at 140, and he lifted the ring lineal title from him and the remaining title that he had around his waist. To date, Teofimo has defended that title now twice. He's the man. He's a WBO champ. And he's the last remaining champ at 140 pounds. The first and last. He conquered that title. Devin Haney came, took the title from Prograis. Loses a fight to Ryan Garcia. The whole debacle there with the PEDs, the Austrian, that's still going on. Now Ryan Garcia's been suspended for a year, and there's fines, money that has to go back to Golden Boy. Devin Haney, usually those fights, because there's a weight issue, the title should have been on line for Devin Haney to win. He got dismantled throughout the fight, and we all know it. We all saw it. He gets picked apart by Ryan Garcia. And usually the title would have been online for the person that did make weight, and it should have been online for Devin Haney should he have won the fight. But he got picked apart and just destroyed in that fight. So Ryan Garcia won the fight but could not win the title because he came in 3 pounds over. Then the whole debacle of the Ostarine and the testing and all this. And Devin Haney gets reinstated as a WBC champ. Goes on, as far as reports say, goes on as far as asking the zone to remove the fight, goes on to get the fight listed as a no contest by the New York State Athletic Commission. Gets his O back, still undefeated. But those images we can't get out of our head. So he was in talks to fight Sandor Martin. And Top Rank wins the bid and tells Devin Haney, Bob Arum tells Devin Haney, if you don't want to make this fight, then relinquish the WBC title and we'll pursue a fight between you and Teofimo Lopez for Teofimo's WBO title. Teofimo has now defended his title. We'll see if that's what comes to fruition. Devin Haney and Teofimo, because Devin Haney has relinquished the WBC title. He has been listed by the WBC as the champion in recess. Alberto Puello on the undercard of Gervonta Davis, Frank Martin, beat Antoine Russell, handing him the first loss of his career. Alberto Puello wins the interim title of the WBC, or for the WBC, with that victory, and has now been elevated to full champion. He is now going to be fighting Sandor Martin. Alberto Puello, Sandor Martin. Puello's the newest WBC champ. Devin Haney in recess. Who knows if he'll accept that fight and deal back with, start dealing again with Bob Arum and Top Rank, which was his former promoter, and make that fight happen with Teofimo. A fight that should have happened at 135 and never did. Now it'll happen at 140 if those talks are real. Then we have Pitbull Cruz, who took the title by destroying Rolly Romero. And he's now going to be defending it on the undercard of next month's Terence Crawford Madrimov main event. Pitbull will be defending it against former 135-pound contender Rayo Valenzuela, who trains out of David Benavidez' camp. A really fast-handed, fast-footed fighter with good pop. That should be a really, really entertaining fight between Pitbull and Rayo Valenzuela. That title changed hands by Rolly relinquishing it to Pitbull, new champ. He's going to be defending the title for the first time. Subriel Matias goes home. Reports, whether verified or not, there's reports out there that he was partying with some local prominent figures out in Puerto Rico the night before the fight. And then shows up as flat of a version of Subriel Matias as you've ever seen or you will ever see, hopefully. Because Subriel Matias, even though people started calling him a fraud after he lost to Liam Perro, that he was made up, the made up boogeyman and the hype job and this and that, you can't deny his record that he had 20 knockouts in 20 victories with the one defeat by decision, and he came back and knocked out that opponent. Now he has a legit loss, another one by decision, and this one doesn't look like people want to see the rematch between Perro and Subriel. Maybe they'll revisit that idea and take it out to Australia and go to Liam Perro's his hometown for Subriel to be able to have a chance at regaining his title. Maybe he does what he did the first time he lost a decision and knock out Liam Perro, and now he retains and restores his record as far as knockouts are concerned and victories. But on the lead up of that fight, we were talking about Subriel needed to look a little more human for the other champions to want to face him because he was so scary. Just destroying and dismantling his opposition. He needed to look a little more human. He needed to lose some rounds. He needed to look like people have a chance. And he did that and some, and loses his title and the fight and looks horrible in front of his home crowd. And loses his title. Loses whatever little leverage he had because now he's such a high-risk opponent. Who's going to want to face him with no title? There's nothing there for anybody to put their career at risk facing Subriel Matias. So Liam Perro, new champ. Pitbull, new champ. Alberto Puello, new champ. Teofimo has defended his WBO title for the second time since he lifted it off the man who was the man at 140 at one point in Josh Taylor. So congratulations to Teofimo Lopez on the undercard. Robeisy Ramirez wins by knockout. And what a great showing by him because, again, Shushu Carrington in the crowd. Naoya Inoue at Shushu's fight. Scouting him, whether he was going to move up to 126 or if he is going to move up to 126, Shushu Carrington would be a potential opponent. Naoya Inoue showed up to scout him. Then they go on to Las Vegas. Divino Espinosa defends the title that he took from Robeisy Ramirez successfully by knockout. And Robeisy and Shushu Carrington were on hand. Shushu a potential opponent, Robeisy a potential opponent, trying to get his title back against Divino Espinosa. And now Robeisy Ramirez wins by 7th round knockout, stops Brandon Benitez, holds the WBO NABO title, which was a vacant title that they put into this fight. And Shushu Carrington was on hand trying to get into a fight with Robeisy Ramirez. He's trying to get a big name. So congrats to Robeisy Ramirez because he looked good. He looked crisp. He looked quick. He's back to his old ways. And a big party out in Miami Beach. Nico Ali Walsh avenged his loss to Sona Akale by unanimous decision, one that caused a lot of controversy with the crowd where they started booing him during the post-fight in-ring interview. And the one that people may be overlooking or at least not paying too much attention to right now, and they should, is Emiliano Vargas, son of the legendary fighter Fernando Vargas. Emiliano Vargas, another knockout, first round against Jose Zaragoza. Fought at 140 pounds now, not at 135. 10-0. Sorry, 11-0, and gets the 9th knockout of his career. So very impressed with Emiliano Vargas. Now he's campaigning at 140. I'm sure he's able to go back to 135 if there's an ideal fight there for him. That new class that's showing up, Kid Kansas, Alan Garcia, Floyd Schofield, Abdullah Mason, Keyshawn Davis. Very, very interesting opposition there and very interesting fights that could be made in those divisions. So I'll leave you guys with that. Congrats to Teofimo Lopez, retains his title. And let's see if the Devin Haney fight does come to fruition. And if Bob Arum actually was reporting or at least leading us on to some truthful news. Not that he hasn't in the past, but if that's something that he's visiting, very, very interested to see that. Just like the Lomachenko-Davis talks being underway for the 135 unification title fight. If that's true, amazing. Also came from Bob Arum. So I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks again for tuning in, and let's keep pushing forward. Take care of yourselves.